We made this. What follows is not a recap of Midsomer Murders. It is a meeting between two relocation experts who are trying to sell the houses of Midsomer. The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are not necessarily the views and opinions of the podcasters.
To buy, to let, to murder.
Hi Meg, how are you?
Hi Dana. Oh, I'm alright. I've had better weeks, to be honest.
Okay. Is it just the general summer malaise, or is it COVID?
Do you know, it's partly the fact that we're back in Marta Warren this week. It just gets me some kind of way, you know?
I know. Honestly, like, going back to that village, every time I'm like, this is a time warp. This is not the 21st century. This is like some kind of 1970s Tory wet dream. Like, it's just awful.
It's, you know, you're kind of driving there and everything just starts to feel real kind of heavy. And you're like, red brick, tick, red tile, tick, church, tick, and then that kind of midsummer malaise sets in.
I mean, the church is very pretty. It's got a lovely... It's pretty, I think.
I mean, nothing good ever comes of a midsummer church.
This is true. Nothing good ever comes of midsummer, I think is what you meant.
Deadly. Pretty but deadly. And it just... there's something about kind of Marta Warren that does not sit well with me.
No, I am not a fan. So, what have you got for me? Because I know you're not going to like mine.
Okay, so you want me to tell you about the hall?
Yes.
Okay, so presumably you've driven past it, have you?
I have, yes. Not an attractive building.
No, it's that sort of strange bluebell-hued, grey, lilac, greyish, blue pebble dash, you know? That red tile, white trim. Yeah, it's a bit of a strange kind of facade, but it's in a really good piece of ground. So I think there are options. However, as I say, there might be a bit of an issue with the fact that Jenny, who is the vendors, if she decides to go with them, we're not going to be in with a shot.
Okay. And Jenny's the widow?
Jenny is the widow. So you've heard about Hector, huh?
I have spent some time down there, so yes, I have. But tell me what you know first.
I mean, the whole thing is just incredibly tedious. He seems like the most hideous man alive, right?
I heard he could be quite fun, actually.
Who have you been talking to?
Oh, we'll come to that.
Okay, because, you know, unless you want a game of rounders with a group of squaddies, I'm not sure his idea of fun is quite the same as mine. So, no kink shaming, however. But yeah, so he was a local magistrate, but I gather, you know, probably not the most straight arrow out there. I think there are some rumours that he may have been slightly corrupt, not terribly fair in some of his judgments. Ex-army, stiff upper lip, lots of opinions. Quite glad I never had to meet this fellow.
He does not sound like fun.
Doesn't sound like a ton of fun. But the hall, I think, has potential. So
the exterior is hideous. It's that kind of mid-Victorian nastiness.
It's hideous, but, you know, exteriors can be fixed. Pebble Dash can be stripped with enough money and incentive. So I'd be interested to see what's under the Pebble Dash. There might be some red brick under there, given the rest of the buildings in Marta Warren.
Okay, yeah.
So potentially it could have a nice aspect, but just at the moment, no. And I just wish it could make its mind up what colour it was. I find it extremely confusing. I'm like, what are you? Are you blue? Are you purple? Are you grey? I don't know. It's very disconcerting. The grounds are great, actually. And it's set away from the village, which could be a massive benefit as well.
Depending on who we sell it to.
Well, for anybody, do you want to live in Martyr Warren?
I would rather cut my feet off at the ankle.
Martyr Warren? Yeah, it's not des res for me. So having a bit of distance from the village would be good. But from a selling point, Martyr Warren's quite picturesque. It has the church, it has the green, it has that really interesting village shop, right? With the kind of deli section, the post office, the video rental, the grocers.
But that's my point, though. It's like stepping back 30 years in time. You know, it really is just an appalling little sort of remnant of all the racism and just village nastiness that you used to find all over the place.
Oh, I completely agree. But I do think for the sort of people that tend to want to relocate, the shop might be seen as an amenity rather than a hotbed of sedition.
Okay.
Not that it's not both.
Yeah.
You know, it can be both.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know.
So what's the interior like?
Very Victorian, actually. So it feels dark. We might need to get Mr. Kitchen to have a look because it's panelling on panelling on panelling.
Triple panelling.
so much panelling, more than triple panelling, like panelling galore. And it's been stained with a really, really dark varnish. So it just feels very sort of closed in. The rooms are incredibly spacious. Okay. There's a lot of space, a lot of big pieces of furniture. The dining room, which is painted red for some reason.
Of course it is.
Has room for a kind of full-length sideboard and a table for 17, silver service breakfast buffet on the air. I mean, there's tons of room. The study, at the moment, there are 3 sofas, 2 desks and library shelving. And there's stained glass throughout, actually. The study has feature stained glass, but so does the hall. Yeah, if you can look past the kind of, you know, army paraphernalia all over the place at the moment, and if you can look past the kind of military decor, which obviously Hector, doing what he did, has bedecked the study in, I think someone could do a lot with it.
So is it being sold as a job lot, as a house and contents?
House and contents, nice. Yeah. Jenny just wants to wash her hands and have done. She's already moved on, I gather. Yeah. I got the impression that there'd been a man on the scene for a while. Okay. Yeah, so I think, yeah, I mean, I'm not sure Hector's terribly much missed by anybody. Actually, that's not true. I did drive past the local farm. And I stopped in because they were advertising free-range eggs. So stopped in, grabbed some of their kind of produce, had a chat with Felicity Dinsdale, and apparently her sister is in ribbons about Hector's death.
Oh, that's so sad.
Well, I'm glad he's missed by somebody, but he doesn't sound terribly pleasant.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know. I think it's a job for Mr. Kitch. See if he can come in.
How much cleaning of blood, etc., will we have to do?
Very little, apart from in the study. And if you take up the Persian carpets, I think it'll be fine.
There's no way we can save the Persian carpets of the silk.
I'm not sure you'd want to. They're not,
okay.
You know, they're not particularly fine examples. So I think we could just take that out. We also need to remove about 27 aspidistras.
Is this set dressing for an Oscar Wilde play by any chance?
It has that kind of vibe, yeah. The antimacassars are missing though, so yeah. Yeah. But I think, you know, maybe put in something a little more modern, a little less periody, and it could really sell. The hall is a real feature. There's room for an occasional table in the centre, good light from the stained glass on the stairs, but again, just dark, dark, dark. It feels pokey, even though it is not. Yes, we might need to tap dance around the fact that Hector did die in the study, though.
Right, so how did he die?
He was shot.
Oh, bloody hell. Okay, with what?
It was a shotgun.
Much scatter?
No, a hole in the panelling, but the books absorb some of the damage.
Okay, it's easy to cover up then.
Well, easy to cover up, and, you know, I suppose the entire kind of section of shelving could be replaced, but that wouldn't be a hard job to kind of match it to what's on either side.
Oh, okay. So basic cleaning job, Mr. Kitchen. If we get the house, that is. How much of a charm offensive?
If we get the house.
How much of a charm offensive?
I don't think I'm that charming.
How much work will you have to do to get this one?
I don't think I can launch any charm offensive that would convince her. Either we can undercut Holden and Sons, or it's going to them, is the impression I got. She's very financially motivated. She wants a quick sale. Because what I didn't say to you is that the person who shot Hector was the stepdaughter.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I heard this from Joyce, actually, because Barnaby was the one who carried out the arrest.
Of course he was.
Yeah. Yeah. So, it was the stepdaughter. So she's now been incarcerated. The mother wants to move to be closer. So, yeah.
Well, you see, the reason why I was asking about all of that is I happen to be selling the house next door, roughly, the Gables.
That one looks really intriguing.
I really like it. It's a bit country cottagey on the inside, could definitely use some work. But it's been kept in quite good nick. It's got that kind of like, you know, slightly overgrown, fertile English, you know, garden look to it, which is always popular.
Always popular.
Pine kitchen, you know. Ugh. I know, but nothing offensive, and the type of people that want to live in that area.
Let's go back. Let's revisit. Pine kitchen, nothing offensive. Ooh.
If you're the sort of person that wants to live in a blinking Midsomer, you know, village, you're the sort of person who thinks a pine kitchen is quite stylish. Let's be honest.
I take your point, but still, it offends me. Okay? I find it offensive.
Well, wait till you hear this then. So the woman who's selling it is called Muriel.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So she used to be married to Hector.
Get out of town.
Yes. And Jenny's ex-husband is soon to be her ex-husband.
Of course. Of course. Why would there be any other set of interpersonal relationships between neighbours in Midsomer?
Exactly.
Why?
Exactly. Just a bit of wife swapping between friends.
Casual Midsomer wife swapping.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And her husband, who is Jenny's ex-husband, and therefore I imagine the murderous stepdaughter's father.
Okay, yeah, sure.
Will.
Her husband, who was Jenny's ex-husband, who was Fleur's father. Yes, okay, on the same page.
Is also in prison for murder.
Great. Good.
Because of course he is.
Because of course he is. So another fast sale is what I'm hearing.
Oh, definitely.
Okay.
But for the exact opposite reason, she is not going anywhere near the prison. She's moving to blinking Alicante.
Oh, gosh.
Apparently she's going to run a
not
bar
standing
out there.
by her man.
No, not in the slightest. Not in the slightest. Apparently he murdered some poor old age pensioner while trying to hide his silver in the old age pensioner's caravan.
Okay. The plot thickens.
The plot is at this point is just completely incomprehensible.
I mean, I think the plot took a vacation actually somewhere down the line. Alicante. The plot went to Alicante. Is that in the flight corridor? Are we allowed to go? I don't know. The plot makes its own rules, but yeah. Oh, okay. So Muriel wants out.
Muriel definitely wants out. Has absolutely no sense of loyalty to her soon-to-be ex-stepdaughter, her soon-to-be ex-husband. She seemed more fond actually of Hector than she seemed of anyone else in the village.
Of Hector?
Yes. Not quite from what you said of weeping farmers, you know, looking after chickens and pigs, but definitely slightly more. Would rather he was on this planet than off it. Put it that way.
Interesting. I got the impression that his previous marriage had not been all kind of a bed of roses, but
well, she's very. I didn't like her. She was the sort of person that was sort of like, how can I put it? Just very old-fashioned, you know, seemed to think that, one mustn't complain about the odd black eye type attitude. Actually seemed to be disparaging of her ex-husband for the fact that while he was willing to murder old men, he had never laid a finger on her in anger, and seemed to think that it would be more acceptable if he had. Yes. And she also favoured that kind of classic Lady Di hairstyle, which just makes me want to rip my eyes out.
Okay, so you didn't take to her.
I did not take to her.
Okay. Did this get in the way of the listing at all?
No. She does not want to sell locally. She seems to want to sell sort of like outside the village. I got the impression she is not popular. Very snobbish, looks down a lot on the local people, didn't have a good word really to say about anyone, was very disparaging about the local shopkeeper. She was very disparaging about the man who works for him in the shop, the man's wife. Frankly, spending an hour with her was just like having poison dripped into my ear.
Do you think you'll be able to take the sale forward?
Meg, is there money in this?
Okay, fine. Silly question.
There is money in this. This is a classic Victorian
I'm just
four-bedroom.
concerned.
I can charm the birds.
Well, we know that.
But yes, I can definitely sell it. But the point is, it just summed up everything I feel about that village. I hate it. I hate it so much. There isn't anything really fun to say about it. It's just awful.
I have to admit, as I say, I'm not sure I took to anybody I met this week, including the Dinsdales.
No?
Either. No, I mean, very interesting sort of neighbours to have, I think. But I don't think we should necessarily advertise that to clients. I'm not sure we should recommend that they're dropping into the farm every 5 minutes.
Oh. How bad?
I mean, you'd probably have really enjoyed it. There was a game of Scrabble on the table when I popped in, and they looked very cosy, but there was cake as well, which was...
God, this sounds amazing.
Yeah, I don't know, I get the feeling that any confidences in that kitchen come at a cost. I'm not sure it was an entirely happy place.
Okay,
so
fair play.
Yeah. Plus, she offered me a slice of cake, which was fine, but I obviously said no thank you. You know how I feel about cake. It's all part of that Midsomer chintzy vibe that I avoid at all costs. But I had a cup of tea, she had some cake, as we were working out how much I owed her for the eggs. And she ate the cake pointy end first, which freaks me out. Who does that?
Me?
No, why?
Because you want to save the icing for last.
Well, no, because if it's horrible cake, then you leave the last, third of it, don't you?
Well, yes, but then if it's horrible cake, you just stop eating after the first bite, which is the slimmest part, so you've eaten the least bit of cake, and then you start the icing at the back.
Start with the icing, exactly. And then if it's horrible cake, you're not in a conundrum.
But the icing is the best bit, so you save that for last.
Oh, I don't know. I think just start with the icing, stop at the icing, leave the dry cake. Just not here for it.
Are you assuming the cake is dry? What if the cake is delicious? Then you've missed out on the delicious cake.
Cake is 93% dry. Most people can't make cake. It's a fact.
I always try the cake and then I decide.
Okay, no, I'm not here for it.
But then my favourite cake is a Victoria sponge, so...
Classic cake. Okay.
But made with real cream, not fake cream, obviously.
When you say real cream, do you mean whipping cream, not buttercream?
Exactly.
Yes, okay. Very traditional. Very Midsomer.
I've been spending way too long in that part of the country.
You really have. You really, really have. Yes, you'll be organising cricket teas next.
Never.
So yes, tea, cake, gossip. Oh, there'd been pig rustling.
Pig rustling. Oh, again, very Victorian, very, yes, Thomas Hardy.
Apparently not quiet, but there you go, bit of local drama.
Where were they rustling them to? Did they catch them?
Oh, I have no idea, I stopped listening.
So, good selling points for this then. Nice local shop, not too far from the village.
Farm fresh produce.
Pig rustling, so, local crime syndicate, I guess. 2 murders in the area, both of which were widely reported.
Those aren't selling points, dearest.
No, this is now the cons. So
Okay.
2 murders in the area. Apparently it's quite insular, which we both would have agreed.
Yeah.
But the 2 biggest houses in the area are now for sale, which is always a good thing.
Potentially.
Okay, so I'm happy to take this one forward and see if I can find any customers for it, but I don't really have a lot more to add about the village, I'm afraid. Other than the fact that I'm quite happy to raise it to the ground.
It's not the most charming of the Midsomer villages. I'm not sure we're going to get the hall. So if you do get the Gables, I can potentially lend a hand if needed. But I think maybe the kind of remoteness of Martha Warren is going to be its appeal for the people who would be interested in those properties.
Yeah.
So the fact that there's nothing there, the fact that the minute you drive through the thresholds of the village, you start hearing the Hovis theme song playing. It might be a selling point.
It might be a selling point. However, no.
I can't imagine who would want one of those properties, let alone both, apart from maybe Lady Banbury. I can really see her taking on the Gables as a kind of summer house or a pleasure villa, you know?
So how did it go
adjacent
the other week when you were showing her around the grand tour?
She wants to keep working with us, but we haven't found anything suitable for her yet. So maybe if we could snag the listing for both of these, we could show them.
Speak to her.
Maybe we'd speak to her. And I can really see her taking to the idea of the hall as her residence and then the Gables as her kind of guest house.
Guest house, dog house, chauffeur house.
I mean, whatever she wants. That woman is so delightful, and she would improve the kind of,
aesthetic.
Well, not just aesthetic, but she would really kind of add something to the village that isn't there. I think, for all of her faults, she's a lovely woman.
I liked her. I just found her slightly terrifying.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the only thing that might be a drawback, as far as I'm concerned, is would I want her to live in Martha Warren? Would I, Sorry?
Would you want to sort of like force her to live somewhere that awful?
Precisely. Do I think there are more charming midsummer villages that she could potentially seek to relocate to? And I do. I think this one is singularly charmless.
Yeah, I agree. I absolutely agree. Okay, so we will see if we can get the hall. If we can't, I will persist with the Gables. It's not big enough for Lady Banbury on its own.
Certainly not.
So,
Certainly not.
So,
do you have anyone else lined up? Do you?
Not really. Not yet. Everyone's still very hesitant at the moment, waiting to see, when restrictions will be lifted, etc. I've got a young couple who might be interested, but no one springs to mind. But I'm willing to take it on. If we can sell it by the end of the summer, I'm quite happy.
Yeah, I mean, having just seen it from the kind of grounds of the hall, it has great curb appeal. I mean, in a way, from what you've said, it's the inverse of the hall, right? The exterior of the Gables is fantastic, but that interior sounds like we need to get Mr. Kitchen there.
Yes, definitely. It needs
really soon.
It definitely needs remodelling. It's just got that kind of 90s shabby chic kind of look to it, which just doesn't sell now. People do not want
No.
that.
Well, I mean, Jenny did very indiscreetly, mutter something about her ex-husband being, land rich, cash poor. So maybe that accounts for the dated decor. But
well, where he is right now, he doesn't need to worry about that. So
it seems.
Yeah, 3 meals a day and all that. Okay, well,
I don't know. This one's tricky. It's tricky. So,
yeah.
All right, you're going to pursue the Gables. I am going to try and underbid Holden and Son.
Do it. I believe in you.
I think there's enough money to be made on the hall that we could kind of do some cutting of our usual fees.
Okay.
I want it enough that I think that might be a worthwhile exercise, but obviously you would have to agree to that.
No, I agree. If you can get it, I will never say no to a sale. Do it. I believe in you. Okay, so shall we regroup in about Wednesday maybe? Martinis for lunch?
Martinis for lunch always sound great. All right, well, good luck with the Gables. And when you see any potential clients, remember to tell them to change the locks.
And don't talk to the neighbours.
And don't talk to the neighbours.
Elsewhere on We Made This. Real talk, the We Made This movie show.
I watched Rabid Grannies on YouTube for free, and it's got hundreds of thousands of watches. And these are things that they've already made their profit from. So these old films, the Troma just stuck them all up and made some extra money off them, and bravo, because they weren't making money from these extortionate eBay sales, but they made money from the free views on YouTube. So I think that's ace. I think bringing those ludicrous films to a new generation, or indeed an old generation who don't want to pay insane amounts, is nothing but a positive thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I didn't know about that.
We dig music.
I need to be very careful this month who I slag off. In the 1968 episode, I slagged off Nick Cayman, and he died.
Did you fucking kill him?
Yes, I killed Nick Cayman.
Did you kill him with your thirst? Just imagining him in that advert? Your weird thirsty thoughts just finally did for him.
You do realise, Tracy, I've just recorded your confession and I will be sending it to the authorities. Yeah, try not to kill anyone, Tracy.
I'll try.
Fuck's sake.
The Time Is Now, a Millennium podcast.
But my whole world fell apart. And all they could do, the whole universe, was to silently move on. A quote from author and poet Khadija Rupa. There's one thing about trauma that's especially cruel. It's not the physical and psychological scars you'll have to carry with you your entire life. And it's not the friendships or relationships that may end because of the emotional ramifications as a result of it. It's that life goes on.
Check out all of these shows and more on the We Made This podcast network.